So Real Madrid manager Carlo Ancelotti has stated emphatically that in Real Madrid's UEFA Champions League game, so they'll be playing the quarterfinal stage against Arsenal, and he stated that their new penalty taker in that game, and perhaps even moving forward, could be Kylian Mbappé. So that comes after Vini Jr. had missed the penalty in their 2-1 defeat to Valencia. So Valencia ended up beating Real Madrid, which, dented their hopes of winning the La Liga title after, they lost in that game. So it was also the first time that Real Madrid had lost to Valencia at home in close to 18 years or 17 years or so. So since 2008, Valencia hasn't managed to beat Real Madrid at Real Madrid's backyard. But it happened, and Vini Jr. missed the penalty. He later redeemed himself, by equalizing in that game, for Real Madrid, as it was 1-1. And then in the dynamics of the game, they lost to Valencia. Then you were thinking that, okay, it's just one of those things. And, that's one of the things with Real Madrid, where everyone anticipated and projected that it would be a clash of egos, definitely when Kylian Mbappé joins the team. And it's what we are witnessing now. You could only imagine what Vini Jr. will be thinking after missing a penalty. And all of a sudden, the manager feels he's not even good enough, to take penalties going forward. But then the head coach and the manager of the club, that's Don Carlo, he's made it so clear and emphatic that in the game against Arsenal, in that quarterfinal first leg in the UEFA Champions League, and that Vini Jr. has been stripped of penalty duties, which means that Kylian Mbappé would be in line. That is, in the event there's any penalty to be taken. I do not know, but then there's also rumors flying around that could really break, that partnership and the bond between Vini Jr. and then Kylian Mbappé. For Kylian Mbappé, he might not care that much, but for Vini Jr., a player that was in contention to win the Ballon d'Or just, a couple of months ago, heading to a year, then all of a sudden, the coach feels that he's not good enough to even take penalties. I feel that should be, very, very strong and very disappointing to Vini Jr. But then for Kylian Mbappé, like I said, he wouldn't really care. And Real Madrid will be hoping that despite dropping points in the La Liga, they could at least, get a win over Arsenal and then also redeem themselves in the league. And, you are looking at a title race, and it's even getting more intense because after Real Madrid lost, Barcelona also dropped 2 points in their game against Real Betis, which means that the top two are being separated by only 4 points. But let's not take Atletico Madrid out of the title race because they also fought back from a goal down to beat Sevilla by 2-1. So they left it late in that game, very, very late, when, after Sevilla had taken the lead, it was Julian Alvarez that converted in the first half. So the game was near, its completion before Pablo Barrios, gave Atletico Madrid the win. But I'm trying to consider Atletico Madrid due to the fact that in the last 5 seasons, they've actually won the La Liga title before. And you'd remember when they did it, with a relatively weaker squad. But this time, they have what it takes and they have the materials to even, go on and win the title. I'm placing them in this title equation because I said Barcelona are leading Real Madrid with even 4 points. But then Atletico Madrid are still in the mix because they also trail Barcelona by just 7 points. Which means that with about 8 games to go in the Spanish La Liga, it still continues to be a 3-horse race. For Atletico Madrid, I feel they just deserve, the shot at winning the title, looking at how good they've been. Until recently, they were winning some games. But then, unfortunately, that form snapped. And all of a sudden, they managed to get a win at the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. But in England, it's interesting because Arsenal dropped points, and after they had dropped points, it's similar to what happened in Spain. Then Liverpool also, goes on to lose at the Craven Cottage. So it was just their second defeat this season for Liverpool under Ancelotti. The first one away from home. But then the interesting thing has to do with the fact that with 7 games to go, they only need 11 points to be crowned champions. But I think Arsenal are the real bottler. So Liverpool failed to win their game after Arsenal had been held to a draw away at the Goodison Park. So Arsenal drew 1-0, and we're thinking, okay, then Liverpool perhaps will just, win this one. They'll get 1 over Fulham, and then, they'll just get a job done even before, perhaps maybe 4 or 5 games to spare in the league. But unfortunately, they just couldn't win it. And Mo Salah went AWOL again. So Mo Salah was nowhere to be found for 90 minutes. And that makes it about the 4th game where we've not really seen the impact of the Egyptian king. He's really been missing. But then the news wasn't really about Liverpool dropping points because we all know that they have about a 98, 99% chance of winning the league. But it was their captain, Virgil van Dijk, whose, contract situation is still uncertain. So after the game, Virgil van Dijk was asked if he thinks that, he could stay at Liverpool. He says he doesn't know if he's staying or leaving, but then they've really made some progress. And that's what he said. And, it's really got people thinking that where's the progress? Is the progress that he's actually going to pack his bags and leave Liverpool at the end of the season? Or progress means that, they are trying to give him an improved offer, which could see him stay at Anfield for the next couple of years. So it's still obscure. It's still not clear if Van Dijk would still remain at Liverpool. But then he only answered with a very, very short sentence saying that there's been progress. No. From Liverpool, let's take a look at Manchester United and Manchester City. Manchester City, to be precise. So it was the Manchester derby over the weekend. It was branded as the most dull and unproductive Manchester derby in a long time. Like, they've not really witnessed such a Manchester derby that lacked life. It lacked, the anticipation. It lacked that electric atmosphere. It lacked everything you could ever want from a derby. And then, Gary Neville, one of Manchester United's legends, just went in pouring it on the head coach or the manager of Manchester United, Ruben Amorim, saying that, he feels there's nothing, there's no quality in this United team. I think if you watch the game, you would really see that United were poor on the day, because it was a game they could have won. It was a game that they had all the chances, just to snatch the win. But unfortunately, the lack of quality up front for Manchester United meant that they failed to even put a ball into the post of Manchester City. But then you talk about Manchester City and they are in deep, deep, deep trouble. No, Manchester City have managed to qualify for the UEFA Champions League in every single season since 2010. So that dates back to how many seasons? 15 seasons now. They've always qualified for the UEFA Champions League. And you talk about Pep Guardiola, whose professional managerial career started with Barcelona in 2007. He has also managed to qualify to the UEFA Champions League each and every season. So after Barcelona, he was at Bayern Munich, he came to Manchester City, and in every season, in a top flight, campaign as a professional manager, he's been able to qualify for the UEFA Champions League. And now City are in a very, very precarious situation where there's a possibility they might not qualify for the UEFA Champions League. Because in first place, you have Liverpool, who I would say have already, booked a place in next season's UEFA Champions League. There's Arsenal, second place. We all know they'll definitely qualify. Then Nottingham Forest are also not slowing down at all. So now that leaves just one more place, which is the fourth place, where you have the likes of Newcastle, you have Aston Villa, you have Chelsea, and then you have Manchester City all battling for one position. Now, Manchester City, even under Pep Guardiola, failed to qualify for the last stage of the UEFA Champions League for the first time in 8 years, something we've not seen before. But that could even be on the lighter note, because to think of the fact that both Manchester City, and then Pep Guardiola might not be able to qualify for the UEFA Champions League next season, that is something unimaginable. And Pep Guardiola was asked about it, but he says he doesn't feel the pressure. He thinks that, he understands that there's a bit, of the stakes being high, but he thinks they might end up qualifying. But for me, I just don't think City have got enough to qualify. They look down. They do not look like a team that's determined to play in the UEFA Champions League next season. I'm looking at City and I feel, no, maybe for the first time in 17 years, and then for the first time in 15 years for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, they might not end up qualifying for the UEFA Champions League. Not just that, but in the MLS, Lionel Messi is making waves. But what's he doing? So he scored in their last game, and that means that he has actually contributed to more goals than any other player in the history of Inter Miami. But one was asking, how old is Inter Miami? So this is a club that was formed in 2018. So they are only 7 years old, and Lionel Messi became their all-time leading goal contributor in the history of the MLS. So a club that's just only 7 years old. You can only compare that club to the other clubs that have been in existence, for like 30 years, 40 years, 15 years, and co. They are only 7 years old. And guess how many goal contributions Lionel Messi has got? So 44, which means that he just went past Gonzalo Higuain's 43 goals for Inter Miami, during his time with the club. But Lionel Messi is not done yet. I just don't think he's done yet, because he's got 24 goals and he's added 20 assists to the 24 goals, which means that with 44 goals in the history of the club that was formed in just 2018, no other player has been able to be, get involved in more goals for Inter Miami than Lionel Messi, and people still, call him the GOAT. Yeah, he's really working some magic in the Major League Soccer.